Hello, everyone. My name is Irvin. I am a business major here at UCI, and I'm originally from Honolulu, Hawaii. And today I am here with Bridget, Bella, and Brittany.
Hi everyone, I'm Bridget. I'm an Earth System Science major at UCI and I am originally from the Bay Area.
Hi, I'm Bella. I'm an education sciences major and I'm from Costa Mesa.
Hey everyone, I'm Brittany. I'm a public health major and I'm from Los Angeles.
And today we welcome you to the Zotcast. All right, everyone. I'm just curious for each one of you guys, how do you feel about like fairy tales in general? We'll start off with, how about you, Bridget?
For me, fairy tales, I feel like growing up, they were always just mostly a source of entertainment. I feel like the only fairy tales I really knew were from Disney movies. And so after taking this course, I really learned a lot more about fairy tales and learned a new fairy tale that I'd never heard of in the past and really learned about the meaning behind fairy tales and why certain authors chose to write them.
That's awesome. What about you, Bella?
So for me, it's kind of similar to Bridget. Also, I grew up with a lot of Disney and I didn't really know anything like historically about fairy tales until I took this class. And I think it's really like broadened my perspective on the true meanings behind every choice in a fairy tale.
That's dope. Dope. All right. What about you, Brittany?
I also grew up with just like Disney fairy tales, but like everyone else said, after taking this course, it's really like opened my eyes on like how fairy tales have changed like historically. So it's really interesting to see how these fairy tales were back then.
Awesome. All right. So today we are basically here to provide a tiny bit of analysis and insight towards the fairy tale, which I'm pretty sure most of you guys know, called Little Red Riding Hood. But specifically, we are analyzing this fairy tale written by Roald Dahl. For those of you who don't know who he was basically like a novelist and a short story writer who created many famous books and stories, such as Fantastic Mr. Fox, The BFG, and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. However, instead of stories and novels, we'll be discussing the fairy tale of Little Red Riding Hood. I'm sure everyone also has heard of the fairy tale Little Red Riding Hood, but this unique version has like a tiny spice to it. With a mix of rhyming, certain rhetorical choices, the ending provides us a little bit of a twist. Little Red Riding Hood ends up actually shooting and killing the wolf that ate her grandma and wears the coat after dealing the blow, which leads to one of the rising themes that is depicted from this story, women's empowerment. So first, we'll talk about some rhetorical choices, and each person will give their own analysis regarding the specific rhetorical choice.
So the rhetorical device that I found was that Dahl highlights female empowerment by making Little Red Riding Hood an object of desire for the wolf, but unlike older renditions of the story, she doesn't fall prey to the wolf's sexual desires. In other versions of Little Red Riding Hood, the young girl either narrowly escapes the clutches of the wolf, gets saved by the huntsman, or meets her doom when she gets eaten by the wolf. And in Dahl's version, he does away with the damsel in distress trope, and it proves that women are capable of saving themselves.
So another choice from Doll that I found was having the wolf correct Little Red Riding Hood when she sees him in her grandmother's clothes. I saw it as kind of like a really subtle hint of female empowerment. Most Red Riding Hood stories have the same lines when the girl says, "Oh, what big ears, what big eyes, what big teeth you have." And instead, she says, "What a big furry coat you have." And then the wolf tells her that's wrong. It's supposed to be what big teeth I have. And then I felt like reading that, Dahl was taking a jab at the conventions of the Little Red Riding Hood genre by reminding the audience that Red Riding Hood usually always has the same statements every time that she sees the wolf, and then it questions why storytellers have thought so little of women to where they can't say anything really creative and show the characters as being more ditzy. And obviously, this all changes when we see what Little Red Riding Hood is capable of at the end of the story.
One rhetorical choice Dahl made that I found was that he gave Little Red Riding Hood more like women empowerment by changing the storyline and giving Little Red Riding Hood the opportunity to kill the wolf. So we know that in the first version of the Little Red Riding Hood, which was published in the century, women were very limited to equal rights as men, or were represented as like a weaker gender. But this version of the tale, we see that Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother were not, well, only the grandmother was eaten by the wolf, but in previous tales, they were represented as like weak and unable to defend themselves. So, in comparison to Dahl's version of Little Red Riding Hood, which was published in a more recent time in the 1980s, women had voting rights and were able to accomplish similar tasks as men. So, I believe that the different eras set the tone to the different storylines of the Little Red Riding Hood tale.
For my part, I think it's what builds off of Brittany. From what is shown in the story, Roald Dahl's purpose of including the choice of Little Red Riding Hood killing the wolf and wearing his coat also symbolizes the idea of women empowerment. Like Brittany said, although the story was created in the 1980s, Dahl highlights the women empowerment movements of the 1960s and 70s, and future movements as well across the globe, and the upcomings of women in modern society through this rhetorical choice. Although there were like certain rhyme schemes and dialogue that made it seem like the fairy tale was like kind of playful or similar to a song, the sudden killing of the wolf brings like a certain shock factor towards the audience, and it allowed everyone to basically be like, holy shit, no way that just happened, and like no one saw it coming. Now that everyone has like provided their own rhetorical choice and analysis, we will share a little snippet of what we personally feel about this fairy tale, or certain choices and conventions that are shown by Roald Dahl. To start us off, I would be saying like how it is kind of interesting to see how this story is told through the eyes of Roald Dahl. In my opinion, I think what I imagined when Little Red Riding Hood threw the wolfskin coat on her instead of like keeping her, her bright red hood was similar to like a "this my shit" moment. Today, we live in like a world where like gender inequality continues to exist. However, as members of society, we continue to strive to find that equality that is out there. Roald Dahl basically highlighted like women's empowerment at the end of the story, and to me, it served as like a small calling for women to step up and demand their place in society in a world that is unequal.
I really enjoyed reading this tale since it had like a fun rhyme to it, and I believe that Dahl's use of rhyme and dialogue, as Irvin mentioned previously, it gives the readers like a sense of imagination, which makes reading the tale more enjoyable. To add on, I also really liked the ending of the tale and the fact that Dahl gave the character of Little Red Riding Hood the guts and encouragement to kill the wolf. It just kind of makes me proud how times have changed. So, in compared to the first version of Little Red Riding Hood, Dahl's version gives power to women and breaks a lot of gender stereotypes.
I also really enjoyed Dahl's use of humor in this fairy tale. I thought it added to the fun element that's brought by the use of rhyming throughout the story. It also gives the reader a chance to laugh before they read about the violence that ensues in the tale right at the end. I thought it was cool that Dahl kind of called out the common things that take place in the genre of fairy tales, and it can allow the audience to question that. Why do so many of the Little Red Riding Hood stories present women as clueless and simple-minded, but can have such different plot points otherwise? It was a smart choice by Dahl that makes his version of Little Red Riding Hood stand out to me more than the others.
For me, Dahl's story also stands out. It's definitely the most memorable rendition of Little Red Riding Hood that I've ever read. Instead of making Little Red Riding Hood an oblivious, innocent, and inexperienced young girl, he makes her a powerful and intelligent heroine. Not only does Dahl's story stand out to me as taking a modern stance of feminism in fairy tales, but it does so in a comical way. Little Red Riding Hood is a kick-ass young woman who keeps a pistol in her knickers and uses that pistol to shoot the wolf dead. I don't know about everyone else, but I've never heard of a young girl carrying around a gun in her undergarments, which just goes to show how capable she is at handling herself.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how like Roald Dahl puts his twist on this very popular fairy tale and centralizes the idea of women empowerment. Well, guys, that's it for today, and we thank you for listening and watching the Zodcast. Have a wonderful day, and remember, dot dot dot.